Hey, everybody who's listening or watching right now. I'm not really sure. But this is Mark and Eric coming at you from remote Spokane, Washington. As you can tell, I don't have my usual setup going on, so there's no video. But I still did want to get something out because the draft finished while I was here, and we want to talk about some of the teams. I started writing reviews like Carter did, and I think Ryan did, but honestly, I'm having a tough time getting it all out on paper, and I thought it'd be fun to just do a cast of how our drafts went and what we think about your guys' teams. So as always, I'm joined by Eric here.
Hey everyone, happy to be here. Happy to be broadcasting from what is probably the home of Pokemon culture in Spokane and SPF. We're in the basement.
Yeah, we're surrounded by plenty of posters that, tried tearing them down, but they keep going back up. But I guess we can start off just by talking about the draft process this time and how our teams came along. The whole draft went quite quickly. I think Carter had mentioned that this was the fastest draft we'd ever had, in clocking in at under a week, I think. And though there were a few moments, where people had to work or went to bed or whatever.
Or prove a point.
Yeah, everything went pretty smoothly. And yeah, it felt more tense. It felt like everybody had a better idea of what they were doing, and so it was stiff competition. I'm looking at the tiers for my exhibition team, and there's not a whole lot left, especially in tiers 3 and 4.
No, and I'm thinking that we might see some teams that are pulling from the same ideas just because so few combos seem to be remaining.
Yeah, and types. Like I'm thinking of fire types. I think Scentiscorch is one of the few. Silvally, fire.
Yeah, a lot of Charmeleons are going to be on
the field. A lot of Charmeleons. But yeah, do you want to start with talking how your draft went? We can jump to your team first.
Yeah, let's do that.
Right, you've got a new name.
That's right. New team, new vision.
New outlook on life.
New attitude. Yeah, I was happy with my team last draft, and I had a lot of fun with the Moltres comfy centric thing, but I really did feel like I was always broadcasting to my opponent what I was going to do, and that the combos were all focused around that one poor little fairy. And so this time around, I really tried to pick a bunch of different types of combos. I focused on the tier 2s. I think that once I started focusing on tier 2s after my Tornadus pick, that I sort of locked in what my team was going to have to be compositionally. I was doomed to have 4 tier 4s, but I'm happy with my tier 4s. I'm happy that I got redirection. It's not something I usually take advantage of. I've got 3 fake outers, which is great, and I've got a couple trick room modes, and I happen to think that Chandelure, Tangrowth, Primarina are kind of a fun grass, water, fire core that I normally don't bring at all. I've also got that priority tailwind that our draft master claims is the single best thing in the game. So,
Can't go wrong with that.
I don't know if I agree or disagree, but I want to put it to the test. And I like that Tornadus has some cool options to activate weakness policies on my team after throwing up a tailwind.
Yeah, I've got one of the genies too, and that move pool is just fun to use. And I know Tornadus gets a few different things than Thundurus, but Brutal Swing in general is a move that I've been really in love with. And I have that option too with Metagross, weakness policy activating, and I think it's just a fun way to break Sash and
if you're
come out of nowhere.
If you're taking sashes out while also boosting your opponent or your ally, I just feel like it's no reason not to use. You might be thinking, like, I'm not going to use a non-stab attack off of my weaker attacking stat, but it's not about that, right? It's about continuing momentum, and that's why I'm happy with Tangrowth too, because I typically don't go for setup strategies because fake out has usually been my only protection, but I think that Rage Powder is not as good as Follow Me, but I think that it is still really good.
Yeah, I think it's good, and Tangrowth really has the bulk to back it up. It also gets, like knockoff, right? It gets Leech Seed, it gets Sleep Powder.
It gets Brutal Swing.
It gets Brutal Swing. Sure, you have a lot of fun options with it. It obviously has one glaring weakness, but I almost drafted Tangela myself just because it's one of the few redirects left, I think, with Togepi. But I think things are looking solid. I'm just looking at the team. I can't believe the Herdier Scraggy were two Pokemon that were off the list. That I had tried looking for some good things, but I didn't look at all the Intimidators. And I think that they can bring a lot of value in certain matchups, which is very cool. And then Hitmonchan, I think, is just such a good tier 4. He can do
great.
So much.
I think he's the best tier 4. And I think that hopefully I'm playing him appropriately and in a way that leads to his promotion maybe in a future season, because this guy's just an amazing tier 4.
As a support.
Yeah.
And just even having the option to go Iron Fist, be an attacker, be a weakness policy Pokemon that has access to the elemental, like physical elemental attacks.
Yeah, can't be intimidated, can't be faked out.
Yeah. He's very, very cool.
I got Primarina. I was looking at Melodic and Rotom Water for this slot too, but I liked your Primarina plays a lot last season, and it feels like it's more versatile maybe than the other two. I guess Melodic is pretty versatile with Haze and Coil and some strange support, but I like that I have some Aqua Jet options if I want to. And I feel like this Pokemon can be defensive, offensive, under Trick Room, under Tailwind. And just, I'm also really missing Dugong. And this is the next best thing.
Yeah, I loved having Primarina, and though, unlike Tapu Fini, it can't set up its own, or it doesn't automatically set up its own terrain, but having a max, I forget what the fairy move is, the max fairy move that
Twinkle Tackle
does set up the terrain is clutch at some points if you want to protect your Pokemon from getting burned or paralyzed, and you do have the Diggersby that wouldn't want to be burned, the Kabutops, stuff like that. So I like having strong fairy offense as an option, like something that you are probably going to max at some point, just for that added utility.
Yeah, I'm kind of looking at this team and seeing Primarina, Chandelure, Diggersby, Kabutops as all potential maxers.
Yeah.
And Tornadus too, if I want to go Defiant ever.
Yeah, it's great to have that option. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what else to say. I know you have a lot of fun options.
I've got little combos here and there. The abilities were things that I was really interested in on these Pokemon. A lot of them are new to me, but Chandelure is something I brought in the 2011 VGC season.
Right.
I really like it for stopping Trick Room, starting Trick Room, just generally being bulkier than you think it would be. It's really good. I was actually thinking that Lampent would get picked up.
Yeah, that's one of the Pokemon that I think is really good and still out there if you are in dire need of a Trick Room Pokemon in Tier 4, or a Fire type.
Or a Fire type.
Or a Ghost type, or an Imprison Pokemon to stop Trick Room. It gets a lot of options. It's very cool. It's pretty bulky with Eviolite, and it's still available. I was debating between that and Haunter myself on my team. But yeah, why don't we jump into...
Let's look at yours, buddy.
My team a little bit, and I'll talk about my thought process. After all that talk of how good Thundurus was, even though I really wanted to first pick Articuno Galar, because I think that competitive is so good. I think that Articuno was such great value for that tier just because of what it can do. But I did end up choosing Thundurus. Thundurus is amazing. Thundurus is... he doesn't have priority Tailwind, but he has such amazing priority speed control in general. I have the option to Scary Face my opponents or Thunder Wave my opponents, or Scary Face my own Pokemon if I need to underspeed something in Trick Room. And that's something that saw a lot of play in Season 8 VGC with Ubers and like Necrozma Duskmane teams or whatever. And I thought it was so cool that I wanted to try it myself. So I started with Thundurus, and then I was thinking of Pokemon that would be good pairings for it defensively. Now that's something that we've talked about a little bit, but it's always fun to grab a good Pokemon and then think, who is going to resist the things that are super effective against it? So my other tier 1 ended up being Metagross, because it resists rock. The ground pairing is great with it. It gets activated by Brutal Swing. Metagross is not really a Pokemon that I've ever used, ever. But it's really good, and I'd love to use it. It has Clear Body. Obviously, it has Ally Switch, which I think makes it an even cooler defensive pairing with some of these Pokemon. Alchemy also is great, but before I get into Alchemy, the third Pokemon that I drafted to pair with these two was actually Umbreon. I dipped into Tier 3 early because I needed something that would resist the dark and ghost attacks that be hitting Metagross. Also, it has a little bit of synergy with Thundurus because Thundurus resists fighting and bug. It's going to be hurting Umbreon. We have Metagross that's resisting the fairy. So that was my own little core of Metagross, Thundurus, Umbreon, with a little bit of bulk, a little bit of support, and a whole lot of offense that kind of started my team off.
I think it's funny that you brought up Duskmane, because you pretty much got the equivalent that's legal to us.
That's true.
And it can't Trick Room, we found out. I thought that it could Trick Room. But aside from that, it's probably scarier offensively. And if you can get Trick Room up otherwise with your team, these two both seem like they're going to fit really well. Same with that beautiful brown horse.
Yeah. I ended up getting Mudsdale too because I wanted to mess around with own tempo swagger stuff. He's great because inner focus. He has just all three abilities are really good, and he has great stats. He has an okay move pool, but he seems pretty solid for a tier 2, and I wanted to try him out. And then picked up other Pokemon that are totally new to me, but I think have good bulk for their tier, like Moltres and Poliwrath, and fun options. Obviously, Moltres can help me out with Airstream. Poliwrath can have a rain mode. He also gets a bunch of support moves. I had to pick up Armaldo because I really wanted to use him this time and not let someone else grab him, so I also have him as a Swift Swim option or just strong rock bug presence. And then Lopunny is actually one of the Pokemon I'm most excited about. Casey and I almost traded Emolga for Lopunny last season, and it's funny to me that we picked up those Pokemon that we missed out on, and we're going to be excited to try them out. But Lopunny just has so many support options and is my lone fake-out user.
I'm actually going to argue that next to Hitmonchan, this might be the best tier 4, and if I got sniped this draft, it was by you with this Pokemon. I wanted both the rabbits on my team, and I think that this thing is almost guaranteed, even without a sash, to live.
Yeah.
And do something real annoying.
Yeah.
It's hard to predict what it's going to do. It's fast enough to maybe even be offensive, so I'm excited for this thing. And I think that we're going to see it on a lot of teams of yours. I also didn't realize until now, seeing them next to each other, that you've got more of a rain mode than I do.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to go a little bit of rain, and you went to the point where you could actually even lead Lopunny something that can set up its own rain dance with a max move, and then have rain round 2 in the back with.
Yeah, and they actually Poliwrath and Armaldo complement each other quite well.
It's amazing.
Type-wise.
Yeah.
They are just great buddies that resist, Poliwrath resists rock and steel for Armaldo and water, and Armaldo doesn't love the things that are hitting Poliwrath, but at least it's not doubling down on those weaknesses. And both can set up max water, and both will benefit from it. So I'd love to. I was talking about this earlier this morning, but my last team had a lot of options. Like, so many options that I was overwhelmed. And this team I also feel has some good lead combinations, some Pokemon that can set each other up very well. But I am a bit more limited, and I think that's probably going to help my consistency, even if it stresses me out at this moment. I think all of my options are kind of more front loaded into certain Pokemon like Thundurus, Alchemy, Lopunny, maybe even Poliwrath with some different options. And I do have options to go like physical or special. With a move, I guess I'll spill the beans on how excited I am about Alchemy too, because the move Decorate is basically just a weakness policy that you can slap on one of your Pokemon. And so I wanted to choose a few Pokemon that would be threatening on, both in the physical and special spectrum, like Exeggutor, Moltres, heck, even Poliwrath could do some special damages.
Even Haunter.
Yeah, Haunter. Metagross has 95 special attack, so that could be a surprising thing. But yeah, I'm not super excited about my team compared it to some others that I've seen, but I do think that it's going to do well, and I'm very excited to use some new Pokemon that I've never tried before. I think on this team I've only ever used Moltres and Armaldo in any sort of competitive capacity.
That's cool. I think this Exeggutor was a great pickup, even though like some of its weaknesses are scary. I think that you have in Metagross a great partner for it. It can go, speaking of physical or special, it can do either great, and I like to see that you got Frisk on your team again, because I think Dusknoir was one of your best guys last season.
Yeah, Frisk Trick Room is, I was really close to taking Orbeetle in Tier 3 because I think it can do a lot of cool things, but I tried in the end to not double up on any of my types. And sometimes I end up doubling up a lot, gives me fewer options, but this time I ended up just across the board with no, besides flying,
Except flying,
I
wow.
suppose. No double types, but who knows, I don't think that really helps beyond the offensive capabilities that you have. But yeah, I'm excited to get my first match out. I have my team ready, and I'm excited to do some fun stuff with these guys.
You also have no Pokemon that can't do damage.
Yeah.
Like every single one of these Pokemon is theoretically an offensive threat, even Umbreon with stab foul play.
Yeah,
so
I think Lopunny is probably the weakest on the offense side, but it does have an incredible physical move pool.
Yeah.
It would just probably need a little decorating.
Decorating.
To take it over the edge. Or maybe, swagger it and have it hold a berry with Thundurus. Like, there's all sorts of options to boost its stats. But moving on from what we think about our own teams, what I thought we'd do is just look over each player's team alphabetically, give some comments on how we think about the team, and I might make a few waiver suggestions. I was going to do that in a higher capacity, but found that there just aren't that many options right now for what you can pick up. So I might just say, hey, you have these compounded weaknesses, think about looking for something like this, but don't take the advice too seriously, because I haven't had time to really think over everybody's teams just yet.
Yeah, and I also tend to think that in this season in particular, like a good performance early on is not as important as it has been. So it's good to take the time to play around with your team and bring different iterations of it. And last season I wavered my Clefable before I even brought it once, because I was like, what have you done? But I do wish that I had held on to it and actually played with it and tried a few things instead of doing that. So, at this point, wavering is kind of a fun thing to start thinking about, just because it's no fun to be put on the spot like before an important match, but it's time to play around too.
Yeah, and I think that nothing, you can do all the theory crafting and all the playing games in your head as you want, but really going on Showdown and messing around with these and having matches is the best way to figure out what works and what doesn't. And so I second that notion of think about maybe what you would change, but don't rush to do it just yet. Unless there's something that you feel you really missed out on that you want to grab before someone else does.
Yeah, that's true.
I think that if you're going to waver now, it's probably going to be for tier 4s that maybe you don't care that you picked up. But yeah, I won't keep harping on that. The first team we can look at is the Blackthorn City Bandits, piloted by Brantley. And his team, for those of you that are just listening out there, I feel like I should just do a quick audio overcap. But he has Hatteran and Ndidi, his 2 tier 1 Trick Room picks, Gastrodon, Magnezone, and Weavile for his tier 2s, Drudigon and Magmortar for tier 3s, Carkol, Chargebug, Dunsparce, and Graplocked for his tier 4s. So I'm already seeing from Brantley's team that he has a lot of Pokemon I love. Magmortar has always been one of my favorites. Drudigon, I think, is a Pokemon that's pretty good for tier 3 and just has great versatility in offense. He definitely started strong with the Trick Room setup, like just strong psychic offense. And he picked up some good fast options, some defensive options, and some strong special attacking options on this team as I look at it.
I love the look of this team. I think Tyler showed us last season how good Hatteran can be single-handedly.
Yeah.
Like, I think it's one of the best Pokemon in VGC. I'm not comfortable using it myself, but its speed tier is amazing for Trick Room. Its ability is amazing. Indeedee is an amazing partner for it. Like, the expanding force off of just a regular Hatteran is shredding stuff.
Yeah.
And I think that those two are really well complemented by these 2 defensive Pokemon that you got next. Like, he's got the Steel Resist on lock, the Poison Resist on lock immediately.
Yeah.
And then his niche picks are also really cool. Drudigon is something that I've looked at a few times. It's super bulky. I like Carkol as a pick because this thing's pretty bulky with an Eviolite.
Mm-hmm. And he has the option to, I know it's a little out there, but weakness policy, Weavile Surf
Yeah.
is not out of the question. I think that Carkol
Yeah, you're right.
and Lava Plume Magmortar.
Now that is interesting.
Yeah.
That is interesting because something like a Carkol might be taking a lot from a Surf.
Yeah.
But I like the Magmortar. Lava Plume is a move, that people don't use much because of how much damage it can do to your own freaking team. Like, you don't want to burn your own
teammate. Yeah.
So this is cool. And then, his special attackers are scary, so why not throw Chargebug on there? This team has style points. His logo has style points. Dunsparce is one of my favorite Pokemon of all time, and I haven't had the cojones to bring it to VGC because I'm not really sure what I would do, but Serene Grace flinching is not to be underestimated.
Yeah, definitely not a joke.
Not a joke.
Graplocked is a Pokemon that I love just because of the not the Octolock, also cool, but the Topsy-Turvy option. And on a Trick Room team like this, you can really change the tides of battle if you're getting swept by something and you manage to get that one Trick Room up, and then Graplocked can come in and just completely mitigate any threat that is on your opponent's big bad, because in some cases it's almost better than killing the threat. If you're able to change its +3 attack, +2 defense into -3, -2, and then you just leave it on the field, force it to switch, that can just be a huge turn in the tempo, in the momentum of the game. So I love having that option. If I just go down, I feel like this team has ground, ground and fighting. Fighting you're not going to need to worry about. I like to come down and look at these weaknesses things just because it gives you maybe an idea of what to look for. Obviously, you don't want to just only count these into consideration because this says that Brantley has a fighting weakness, and obviously we know that fighting is not super strong in VGC right now, and if you look at his tier 1 Pokemon, they're just going to chew up any stab fighting users for the most part. I do think that we could think about
And listen, even the ground, I feel like the ground weakness is misleading because it's pretty much all that Carcoal.
Yeah.
And if you're not bringing Carcoal to the match,
Yeah.
your rest of your team isn't really all that ground weak. So look at those and evaluate them, like see if it's worth looking into. But I would also be thinking about what role is my team missing.
Yeah.
And when I look at this, I see a fantastic Trick Room team, but I see Indeedee and Weavile as the only options for a fast mode.
And Carcoal, potentially.
Yeah, but really, like, Carcoal may come through.
Yeah.
But I'm wondering if ever this team were to waver or look for something else, if it wouldn't maybe look for something that next to Weavile is an immediate offensive threat. Like Weavile can do the beat up, surf weakness policy with something, even just fake out while something attacks.
Yeah. I suppose, there's still all of the... I guess I don't even know if Virizion is still available, but that's one of the few justified.
Yeah, Virizion, that would help with the ground weakness. Absol is not as fast as Virizion, but it's an option.
No. Yeah.
But Virizion is fantastic.
Yeah.
And Virizion, I didn't realize for the longest time, gets max airstream through bounce.
Mm-hmm. The other Pokemon I think we were talking about for Brantley's team is if he wanted to lean into heavy psychic offense, which his team already has, but consider dropping Dunsparce or another tier 4 that you're not very interested in for a Pokemon like Kadabra, which would also give you a faster mode, and just provide an incredible, unflinchable psychic offense to
Next to
pair
Indeedee.
with Indeedee. Yeah, even in the back, or to pair with Indeedee just to have a faster offense right away. What's cool about that is he's also not going to have to deal with First Impression or Sucker Punch or any priority move. Even Extreme Speed could kill your Kadabra, thanks to that Psychic Terrain by Indeedee.
I love that idea. I'm glad you brought that back up. I've been thinking about Kadabra because of the darts draft, and it's a great find in that. But I'm surprised that it's in
Tier 4.
Tier 4, and even though I love his Tier 4 picks, if you're ever sour on one of them for a performance, consider Kadabra, because it does give you the fast mode, and it just lines right up with this Psychic Terrain mode that you're going. Even just Weavile Indeedee as a lead is pretty scary.
Yeah.
Indeedee does pretty impressive damage just on its own.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is going to be a team that really... people who don't have good resistance to Psychic are already just going to have a heck of a time dealing with this. And I think with a few little tweaks, you could also... I'm thinking this team doesn't have Unburden, but it does have Terrain. So another thing you could think about is like going for Slurpuff, who's not picked up.
A very good Pokemon. And there's a fast mode that can bring opposing teams down to the speed that you would like them.
Yeah. Yeah, and would kind of be great with a few of your picks. But I think this team already is great.
It's great.
And Brantley's going to have a lot of fun. I think Gastrodon is one of the best Tier 2s.
Yeah, and even Weavile surfing into Gastrodon
Sure.
is something that you could play with.
Yeah.
I'm excited for this Magnezone because I'm facing a Celesteela week 1, and I don't know what the heck to do against it. And these Pokemon that trap certain types is real cool for draft. You might just scare those Pokemon out of even being selected by your opponent.
Yeah, I think Magnezone is great, having Sturdy, having Magnet Pull. And honestly, it gets Ally Switch, which
I was
is
about to say,
so great for Hatterene.
yeah, these resistances moving around the field, invaluable, and Magneton does not get Ally Switch.
Yeah.
This is only for the zone, so
Something I found out
use it.
last season. But yeah, I'd say great team, Bran, and it seems like you had a lot of fun picking these guys up. I'm really excited to see the Druddigon. That sheer force damage is just really strong for a Pokemon with good resistances and good bulk. And he can do a lot of fun things. All right.
Yeah, you were talking about this team yesterday.
Yeah, this is the the Bloomington Barboach, piloted by one of our 4 newcomers, Drew, Quaint Newt. And this is one of the few teams that I would honestly be happy if our teams were just completely swapped. Not only because there are a lot of cool Pokemon on this team that I like and would have loved to use at some point, but also because I think it is incredibly solid and that Drew did a great job of rounding out such a solid team for a first drafting. So obviously, I'll go down the list for those of you that are listening to this and not watching, but we have Durant and Togekiss as tier 1s. We have Liepard Suicune as tier 2s. Dragalge, Mr. Mime Galar, Rhydon, and Trevenant as tier 3s. Caracosta, Cinccino, and Electabuzz as tier 4s. This is the team that I had started my write-ups about because I was kind of excited about it, mainly because I am a huge Durant fan, and I've used it a lot in VGC. But just right off the bat, what I really love about this team is the fantasy core of Durant, Togekiss, Dragalge that help each other out a lot. Obviously, Suicune enters that mix as well and just creates a very bulky defensive core with some fast offense in Durant and some good slow offense with Dragalge that's a bit more bulky. Dragalge, if you guys don't know, it has an ability called Adaptability, which gives it basically a second stab on its poison, free specs boost onto its dragon and poison moves. It's quite offensively scary. Togekiss obviously has amazing redirect. Durant is just a powerhouse because Hustle boosts his attack by 1.5, and Dynamax moves don't miss. So he can, for 3 turns, just throw out moves without having to worry about it. And also has some fun support options, funnily enough. He can, or maybe not exactly support, but I'll say some niche moves that are not just all offensive. Durant gets entrainment. There's a lot of fun things you could do. The first thing I thought of was entrainment on something like your Rhydon. Giving Hustle to something else and then having it max would be such a cool thing to see on certain teams. Caracosta also gives help to a lot of these Pokemon with Wide Guard. Durant, Togekiss would love to appreciate, even Dragalge, the immunity to Earthquake, Heat Wave, Rock Slide, Discharge. And another thing that I want to talk about just to open the conversation is this Pokemon, Trevenant. Trevenant is a ghost grass type, one of 3 new ghost grasses that we've seen drafted for this season. And Trevenant has a move called Forest's Curse. And what that move does is it adds the grass type to whatever Pokemon you hit with it. And that can be defensively, if you want to protect one of your Pokemon from getting spored, something like that. Or it can be offensively because you basically give them a weakness to poison, fire, flying, ice, bug because of that added grass type. And one of the first things I noticed on this team was that Dragalge, Togekiss, and Durant all have stab attacks that benefit from the opponent being Forest Cursed. And I just think that that's so fun and useful for this team because Trevenant, relatively bulky, can do a lot of fun stuff. Obviously, he's a great Trick Room user, but I just love seeing that. Well, those are my just initial thoughts on this team. There's way more you can do, but I love this team because it has a lot of options. This is my sort of thing, and it has some really sturdy Pokemon in Togekiss and Suicune that are going to be able to help you with your speed control needs.
Yeah, Suicune, I think, has been underlooked, and the fact that it can set up Tailwind without being flinched, right, is amazing. I'm assuming it gets Snarl, too. It gets Icy Wind. So this thing is going to stick around, and the rest of his team handles its weaknesses fine. Like, Dragalge handles its weaknesses fine. So I think Suicune's amazing value, and then, we didn't talk about Togekiss specifically, but this thing freaks me out every time because you don't know if it's going to support the team and do that really well, or is the thing itself going to max and start critting your whole team?
Yeah.
And I think it's just that's amazing in that it can shift momentum. That goes through screens. He also has Mr. Mime is like an additional like mid-game switch in that can just alter a whole lot of things with fake out, with helping hand, with removing screens. I think that Rhydon is really great having Lightning Rod next to the Togekiss, unless you're in case you're going to be maxing that, is great. Caracosta is something that I used, I think, in that 2011 BGC season, actually, because Wide Guard was so important then with Rock Slide flying around. And I don't know if he can set up a rain mode for this thing, but it does damage.
Yeah.
He can do it with it. You
Yeah.
know? He can just use this as a maxer. I also like that this team could benefit from an Aqua Jet Absorb Bulb something on someone. You know, if your weakness policy is tied up, don't underestimate the Absorb Bulb.
Yeah, I think Mr. Mime ice sharding Durant with Snowball
With Snowball.
equally
Yeah.
interesting if you already have a weakness policy Togekiss or something.
So the offense on this team is nuts, and it's just kind of hidden in these unexpected Pokemon. Even Lipard's doing crazy damage with Foul Play. So this is another team that out of nowhere, none of these Pokemon don't do damage.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's great. The only thing that I was thinking about is maybe I'm down on Lipard, I'll be honest. I know Tyler drafts it almost every draft. And he loves it so much, but I would rather in this slot have Sableye, which is going to do a lot of the similar things that you need. It also has Will-O-Wisp, which could be great priority. A little bit bulkier than Lipard, and has some other fun options. Obviously, it doesn't get Fake Tears, which you probably won't with Lipard. It doesn't get Thunder Wave. I just think that the speed control is already so there on this team with Suicune, with Togekiss, with your two Trick Roomers, that you could think about just checking out Sableye if you're just looking for a strong prankster user. Because he also gets Foul Play, though he's obviously not as fast.
This is going to be a real hard team to prepare for.
Yeah.
Very hard. You know, I don't have any waiver suggestions off the bat because I'm pretty excited about a lot of the things this can do. I guess I want to know what the Cinccino
Yeah, the
can
Cinccino's
combo
the
with.
only thing. So Cinccino obviously can after you to set up maybe some Trick Room. Electabuzz is another one that I was thinking, well, it's cool. It's got a great speed tier. If you wanted to add more to your Trick Room, I was thinking Stunfisk, just for a rock resistance, because the thing that we see is that his 4 big guys do not have any sort of rock resistance, which isn't the most common move, but it is good. And a lot of people pick up strong rock types. So it just might help out. It is a little bit slower, a little bit bulkier than Electabuzz, and can do some fun things like Eerie Impulse. I know it gets Muddy Water. It's a little bit
It might be
sturdier.
It might be fun to look to see if there's any tier 4 Pokemon that combo with Cinccino's Skill Link.
Yeah.
You know, I wish you had Cinccino for that Stamina Mudsdale.
Sure. Oh, yeah, I'll tell you right now, Drew, if you're listening, that Mudbray is still available, and if you want to hit that thing 5 times, get it to +5 defense, and then body press some suckers, you could think about that. Also helping with the rock resistance. But I think that this team, it has already 3 Eviolite Pokemon. And maybe that's originally why I was thinking to dip Electabuzz for Stunfisk. But you're going to be fighting for Eviolite. And whether you're going to bring more than one of these on a team, I'm not sure. But some of them are certainly good enough for that. Like Rhydon, I could see you bringing a lot.
Yeah, and listen, Mr. Mime Galar I use as much with Focus Sash as I do with Eviolite. Even Rhydon I could see using Sash or Resist Berry on, because those original NFEs are strong.
Yeah, I do think as it is that Sash is also kind of tied up on this team, because Durant might want it,
Lipard.
or Lipard will.
Yeah.
That was another thing that, you know, you could think about Sableye, because he doesn't need to run Sash.
Yeah. Sableye can run an item to trick and screw up a team.
Exactly.
Usually.
Yeah. Think about the ring target, and then your Dragalge suddenly is blasting through steel types with poison. I would love to see that. Or, fairy types with dragon.
Yeah.
I would love to see that. But yeah, overall, I'll say it again, but this team is awesome. This is one of my favorite teams of the draft. I love the Pokemon, even though Togekiss isn't my favorite, but I'm really excited to see Dragalge. I'm really excited to see Trevenant. I love Electabuzz, and Durant is fearsome. Strong Bug Max move is really good, and I think that it does not get enough credit just yet, but it might this season.
Before we move on, I want to make one more plug for Sableye now that I see this team again, but the Trevenant Harvest is a move or an ability that not many guys get, and it can be hard to pull off, but you can go like a fully defensive, self-healing every turn mode where you're protecting, subbing, getting back up to full life, and stalling out turns. So that's a different type of win condition that I see on a Pokemon that looks offensive initially.
Yeah, I remember trying to run Harvest Trevenant with Torkoal Trick Room in Daytona. And it is a cool option, and Sableye does give you that.
Yes.
Sableye is a great weather setter. I think Liepard also gets Rain Dance Sunny Day.
Really? Okay.
I'm not 100% sure, but Sableye definitely does.
Yeah, he gets Sunny Day, not Rain Dance.
Yeah, and another thing that I like is that Quash is speed control in and out of Trick Room, unlike Thunder Wave with Liepard that is just outside of Trick Room. But Quash is going to help you out if you decide to go to that slow mode that we see kind of in these lower tiers of the Trevenant, Rhydon, Caracosta, Dragalge.
Can Rhydon Swords Dance?
I'm not sure.
That's something he's pretty frightening in his own right. Like
Rhydon?
Yeah, he looks like your like Lightning Rod support mon, but he's good. I think he can Swords Dance.
I think he's great. I was even looking at Rhyhorn. I think Lightning Rod is just fantastic, to be honest. But yeah, congrats on the team. Excited to see future of this one. And let's go ahead and do one more here. Let's jump into the Fighting for Alligators, another newcomer.
Oh, man.
Piloted by the Shiny King himself, Trevor. And this team is just, like, it's very offensively scary. I will rattle off the Pokemon for you guys. Dracovish and Regieleki for Tier 1. Gigalith, Jellicent, and Slowbro Galar for Tier 2. Articuno and Scyther for Tier 3. Bahium, Garbodor, Rapidash, Galar, and Turtonator for Tier 4. This is threatening just because I'm looking at the top here with Dracovish, Regieleki, Pokemon that hit each other's resistances quite well, and they hit on physical and special sides of things, and they hit like trucks, respectively. Obviously, only a few Pokemon can resist the electric water offense here. I'm thinking Whiscash, Gastrodon, those Pokemon can really help here. But if you don't have one of those, you're going to have to be well prepared for both of these threats. And Gigalith doubling Dracovish's speed is just icing on that cake, because he gets to either go Strong Jaw or he gets to go Sand Rush and just really press the speed here.
Yeah, and I think that Dracovish is underrated in VGC. This guy was the king of singles when people figured out what Vicious Ren does.
Yeah, what exactly it meant.
And I'm conflicted. Like, I love the speed from Sand Rush, but I feel like what makes him him, and what makes him able to two-shot a Ferrothorn, is Strong Jaw. And I want to hype Regieleki as his partner, because this guy can either Electro Web or Max Strike.
Right.
With Hyper Beam. And then suddenly Dracovish is hitting next with a Vicious Rend, and something is dead. And maybe two things are dead. on first turn.
Yeah.
So those two together, even as a lead, are pretty cool.
Yeah, you're totally right.
I love that the Shiny King got Jellicent. I mean, this thing has been kind of like... I feel like it lives in some other ghost type's shadow, but that its typing is super unique. Being able to absorb water moves is cool. It's a reliable Trick Roomer. And the Water Spout mode, either in and out of Trick Room, also makes it pretty unpredictable.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of unpredictable, Quick Draw.
Yeah,
Slowbro.
we saw how good that was last season, I think, as the MVP Tier 2, piloted by the Long Boys. But that Pokemon can operate in and out of Trick Room. Who cares? Because it's just going to be throwing out strong moves. Then we've got a pair of quad weak to rock flying types. One, very defensively. Articuno is cool. It gets Tailwind, right? It gets Ice Shard to activate things if you want to.
Can it freeze dry?
Relatively bulky. I think it does get Freeze Dry, which is an amazing ice move. And just has strong air streams. Just good stats for a Tier 3.
Both of these are really good in spite of the glaring weakness.
Yeah.
I recently started looking at Scyther as the dual wing beat master because of Technician, and it does a frightening amount of damage, and I think that it'll be a real tempting pick if he ever is up against the Urshifu teams, because this thing eats them alive.
Yeah, this thing does eat up a lot of strong Pokemon. And Scyther, just with Eviolite, is incredibly bulky, and he can be a threatening Swords Dance user. Also, Max Airstream is just great in Draft, and any Pokemon that can throw those out in a strong way is something you got to watch out for. And both of these Pokemon fit that bill. Scyther is nice, he kind of pairs up well with these water resists further up here. And I'm excited to see him because we did not get to see either of those Pokemon really play out last season. If we're looking at Tier 4s, Beheeyem, a Trick Room Pokemon that I was tempted to pick up. It has a lot of fun options. It's relatively bulky. It can Meteor Beam and just be a strong special attacker.
It has better special attack than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah, it is quite strong, and it has telepathy, which can have cool implications. Unfortunately, Regieleki does not get Discharge, but he does have some fun things to use. I like Beheeyem as an imprisoned Trick Room Pokemon.
Even that combo is not very common and invaluable, The Trick Room team can prevent you from taunting them, they can prevent you from faking them out, but it's hard for them to stop you from an imprisoned strat.
Yeah, so I like that. I like Garbodor. I've not researched enough on it, but you like Garbodor, right?
I love this Pokemon, and congrats on getting it, because I was going to pick it up if nobody else did. I think that having the Tier 4 G-Max option is really cool. I think that poisoning guys is actually underrated, and there are ways to make that your win condition, whether you are stalling them out. I was looking at Venom Drench. Maybe that's something to look at in your waiver futures. And then Jellicent can Hex.
Yeah.
And that's doing 130 damage off of a non-Dynamax Mon.
Yeah.
So Garbodor is cool. I think that Garbodor has a decent move pool. Like, he can do the rock move, do the steel move, do the ground move, do the fighting move, do the dark move.
Yeah, he's equal offenses on board, and he can do some fun stuff.
And I'd actually argue that Rapidash Galar is one of the stronger Tier 4s as well, just because of its speed and move pool. And I'm pretty sure it's a really quick charm. And a really quick charm is a really good thing.
Yeah, I like it. Turtonator is a Pokemon I've always wanted to use. I've never seen it. It's pretty dang bulky, and it can throw out some fun attacks. It has a cool offensive spread. Fire and Dragon, very cool.
Is there room for Shell Trap in doubles? Is that
not something I've really thought about, but I think it could pull off, a surprise win. But I do like this team. I know that this team has a pretty serious dark weakness, I want to say, and rock. Though obviously, we're looking at those two quad weaknesses, and so you don't need to worry too much about what's going on here. But I was thinking, just suggestion-wise, that Crocodile would fit well on this team. I know that Carter already suggested replacing Gigalith with Hippowdon, which I think also is something you might want to do. Just because you will get that rock resistant, it's a little sturdier. But Gigalith can do some really cool things, like Gravity.
Yeah, I want to talk about Gravity because underused move, not really well distributed, and if you picked up Crocodile in some other way, then you're dragging stuff down into your Earthquakes or into your max ground move. And I don't know if Rapidash can Hypnosis.
The normal one can, so I imagine the Psychic one.
But be thinking about the really annoying status moves that suddenly go up in accuracy thanks to a move like Gravity. Like, Gigalith is strangely a pretty cool support Pokemon, and by boosting his own special defense, this guy's bulky.
He's very
I know that
bulky.
the Hippo is bulkier in some ways, but this guy is still bulky.
Yeah, and that rock offense is cool, not only because it lets you set up your sand again if you need to, but it's tough to find resistances to it all the time just because fighting is not used as much. And of course you have your steel option, but steel types are not the most plentiful. So I like having Gigalith as a stronger Pokemon than Hippowdon offensively, which I think on this team might pay off in this just landslide of offense. I think that Slowbro Galar is what I would drop for the Crocodile because you do cover its typing quite well on the rest of your team. But I think you just think about it because you already have something really good here.
My waiver suggestion would be to try and pick up something with Sand Rush. And I'm thinking the dogs. The Lycanrocs.
Yeah, Lycanroc.
They've got immediate offense right off the bat, and Jellicent Gigalith is such a good Trick Room mode. It would be cool to have a team that can start off fast or start off slow and then pivot the other direction while still benefiting from the weather that's still going on.
Yeah.
I think they're tier 3s, those dogs.
They're tier 3s and only the normal one.
Only the normal one
the
gets
day
it?
form gets Sand Rush.
Are there any others available? I think
Sand Rushers?
Yeah. Arcto something? Dracozold?
Yeah, Dracozold is a tier 1.
Okay,
which,
never mind.
Sure, you could potentially swap out Regieleki for it, but I like what you've got going on right here in terms of your tier 1s.
The tier 1 combo is really strong.
Yeah.
Here, so don't play with that many weeks because I think you're going to break some hearts. Max Regieleki next to Dracovish just sounds really good.
Yeah. Another thing that I was thinking about for this team is if you wanted to pick up a switcheroo Pokemon. So I know that Galar Linoon has a great move pool and would give you a nice little dark resist on your team. Tier 4 can switcheroo, but this team would love to have an option to switcheroo a Ring Target. I know this is my new pet project, Ring Target, but Regieleki with it, if you wanted to pick up Impidimp, who is a tier 4 that can priority trick that, Dracovish would love that for Storm Drain. I guess it doesn't work for abilities, actually. It only works for types. So it'd be more useful for Regieleki against ground types. But think about that as another utility option for you, because I think you have almost everything else here.
This is a great team.
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, this is an example of a team that I would say look at the weaknesses for ideas if you're dissatisfied, but don't see those layered weaknesses as a reason to change this team, because that makes it look like you're bringing all the Pokemon to a battle.
Exactly.
You're not bringing all the Pokemon. You're not going to bring Articuno and Scyther likely to the same battle unless you have a very specific strategy in mind.
Yeah, you're fighting the grass offense
Yeah.
team. But yeah, so great team. Another strong first draft that we have here, and I'm very excited to see how Trevor pilots this bad boy.
Great logo too.
Great logo.
No, no. This team is hard to talk about because it might be perfection.
I think it's going a little far. I think a lot of people have stars in their eyes looking at this team. They had the first pick that was able to grab Rillaboom first, which I think is strong. I did that as well. And then supplement it with the double pick of Arcanine Lapras to really just round out a core right away. And I've had a lot of conversations with Carter recently about type cores and why things are good at certain points. And, you know, we were talking about Incineroar and Rillaboom just being Pokemon that complement each other type-wise and also do something really good outside of that, right? Obviously, both can fake out. Incineroar has Intimidate. And I like seeing that we just have 3 really strong Pokemon that can all do that extra bit along with just switching in and helping each other's out. Obviously, Arcanine, we have Intimidate, we have a Fire Absorption with Flash Fire, and we have Justified, which, as we saw from last season, is really scary on all fronts. Rillaboom has the Terrain, the Priority, the Fake Out, the ridiculous offense, and Lapras has your Water Absorb, even Shell Armor could come in handy at certain points, and it obviously has that added value of Max Resonance, which sets up the Aurora Veil for you for 5 to 8 turns. And that's just the start of this team, right? Because next up he picked Regigigas, Weezing and I guess I should go through the rest of the team for those listening, but Archeops, Obstagoon, Cottony, Ninjask, Raboot, and one of my favorites, Thievul. But we see that he hits a lot of good points. He got another combo, Weezing Regigigas.
He got what some people might call the combo. I mean, the one thing that keeps this in check is that this is the draft format, and you know that you might be facing it. So if you don't have an answer to a simple Weezing Regigigas lead, that can spell the end of your team.
Yeah, that can just be like, well, this is going to be an extremely uphill battle.
And then he complicated it because Archeops is different, right? Like, it hits like a truck, just like Regigigas, but it hits with Max Airstream, and it hits with Stab Rock. So, which is he going to bring?
Yeah. Also gets Ally Switch, Quick Guard. It gets some strangely strong support moves, along with being just incredibly fast, incredibly offensive. Another thing, people might be looking at Cottony and thinking, well, you know it doesn't get Tailwind, right? But Cottony is a secondary ability suppressor with Worry Seed. This is something that I thought about with Rillaboom, who also gets Worry Seed, but be on the lookout, you know, for him being able to suppress his abilities in more ways than one. Ninjask is cool. This is the second season that he has drafted it in a row. And I do think that there are some fun applications, whether it be Weakness Policy Activator or Baton Passer. We've also seen Ryan of the Seattle Sea Kings, I think, hoping to do some fun things with his Speed Boost Baton Passing Pokemon. And I do think that there is a spot for that if you play your team right. Thievul, amazing. I don't have to make another video about it, but awesome unburdened Pokemon that gets beat up for his Arcanine and can do a bunch of other things. This team all across the board is very offensive, with some good defensive options coming from Lapras, coming from the Intimidate, coming from Obstagoon Obstruct, a very good Pokemon for Tier 3. One last thing I'll say is something that I think was not touched upon by Carter's review, but Weezing can use Misty Surge. And you might think, well, why would you bring that? You know, you're going to be using Regigigas, you're going to be using Weezing. But I think that there are definitely games where he's going to want to not get hit by burns and stuff. And having Misty Surge is just such a great option with Thievul, with some of his other Pokemon like Rillaboom that do not want to be statused, Archeops that does not want to be statused. You could have a lot of fun with that too. It just has this team's great.
This team is great. I'm not sure what to say about where to go if, just because, I guess we can talk about Raboot. Right?
Yeah, I think that's the only...
And maybe Ninjas, just because I believe in Baton Pass, but I believe that Baton Pass needs Fake Out next to it, which limits us to Rillaboom.
Mm-hmm.
So...
And good receivers that are not going to get chunked.
Yeah, and so it seems like the Grass, Water, Fire core is what would need to be the focus of that Ninjas Baton Pass, just because you need to be able to have multiple switch-ins that can take a range of attacks. I love Libero as an attack or as an ability. I don't know if this thing's going to be putting out the damage even with that to make it something you'd pick over just like putting a fire attack on one of these monsters or bringing Arcanine.
Right.
It can court change, I guess.
No, it can't.
No, can't court change.
Sadly.
So maybe that would be the Pokemon to kind of, see if you have a specific use for it, but otherwise maybe be looking at some of the other tier 4s. Like one that I think is just straight up good is Lunatone. Trick Room, Ally Switch. I don't know that necessarily is what this team needs, but since you have one of the best fire types in the game, I don't know that Raboot is really going to come through.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think it's the only, might be a signature pick that Jackson really likes, but I do think it's one of the things I would consider swapping out.
Maybe Carter's suggestion to me, does this team have a steel type yet? Carter suggested Metang as a pretty good tier 4.
Yeah, with Ally Switch to help you out in a lot of ways. And yeah, that would be great. Stunfisk Galar, I think, is still a steel type available. Doesn't seem like this team has ground either, so just having a nice electricity immunity could be good. But beyond that, I just think that he has a lot of pieces of, things that work very well together. And he has so many tools for dealing with opposing teams with just such strong options right here. Like when you're team prepping against this team, you're going to look at this and you're like, oh, damn. And you're not even going to get to down here. And this is where he can start having a lot of fun. Like I'm telling you, this Thievul is one of the best tier 4s.
Yeah, Thievul's a great pick and reason enough that Weezing might not always run neutralizing gas.
Right.
I could also see a tier 4 maybe working on this team. Imprison, Protect, Type Null.
Yeah, because this is such offense.
This is offense. You don't want your opponent just stalling you out with Protect, especially with a monster like Regigigas. Even the core is very strong.
Yeah.
So, yeah, look at Type Null as something that can really annoy your opponent by spreading Thunder Waves, Icy Winds, and imprisoning their one chance to survive the onslaught.
Yeah, very true. Yeah, I think that's a great suggestion. But great work, Jackson. I know that you felt a lot of pressure with having first pick, but this team ended up looking real good.
It's a masterpiece.
And I'm excited to see it play out. Okay, next up, we're going to be looking at the Lilac City Long Boys, piloted by John. And I'll just quickly cover what he has right now. He's got Celesteela and Urshifu, tier 1s, the combo that Isaac brought last time, though I think he's swapped up to the water type. Klefki and Wyvern for tier 2s, along with Raichu. Eldegoss, Lurantis for tier 3s. And then Ditto, Heatmore, Miltank, and Skuntank for tier 4s. Now, obviously we have pretty great offense just at the top here. The Celesteela Raichu thing is something that Isaac brought last season to near every game, and it really paid off for him. It's just so strong with the Lightning Rod, and I feel like with Urshifu as a water type here, it's kind of cool that Raichu has Lightning Rod too.
Yeah, I think that he just added to that synergy, and fire types are one of the big things that are going to give Celesteela trouble, alongside Lightning Rod. So I think that Rapid Strike is just the perfect pairing with it.
Yeah.
And it's frightening because, it can break through sashes with its signature move. It's got Aqua Jet. These three together have had me stumped all week because this is the first team I'm facing. The Klefki is sort of like, should be a cult Pokemon. I think that it's one of the prankster users that we forget about, but it's as good as Grimmsnarl at the screen thing. We were just talking about how it gets priority terrain if it wants. Priority Thunder Wave is enough to just win you games.
Yeah, it gets Metal Sound, which is equivalent to Fake Tears, so that paired with Noivern or Raichu could be really scary.
And Celesteela,
Yeah,
is a great
totally
special
right.
attacker.
And yeah, even like priority terrain, and also a move that we have yet to see really pay off, but Crafty Shield, which is a move that protects both of your Pokemon from any move that doesn't do damage. So Will-O-Wisp or Taunt, anything like that is stopped with Crafty Shield. It's a pretty niche option, but I do think that there's a lot of good ways to use it, especially against like stat lowering moves like Charm and Eerie Impulse, which I think we're seeing a rise in usage of.
I love this Noivern pick. I think Frisk might just be one of the best all-around abilities.
It's so good.
Great in draft format where your opponent's going to do weird stuff. They bring in weird items, and you need to find out what they are before game 2. And this guy is a fast Tailwind.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I like this. I like Boom Burst too, and you don't have a Ghost, but there are 2 Steel types that really might not mind too much being next to that.
Yeah, very true. Eldegoss is, we'll talk about Raichu a little bit. Raichu's cool in that it has so many options. It can set up itself with Nasty Plot. It gets Fake Out. It gets Lightning Rod. Brutal Swing, though I don't think there are any applications of that for this team, except for maybe one with the next Pokemon we're talking about. Eldegoss. I literally just looked up this ability for the first time. And I was not as informed as I should have been, but Cotton Down, when Eldegoss is hit by any damaging attack, it lowers the speed of every other Pokemon. So kind of like a soft bulldoze effect whenever it gets hit, which could have some interesting application when I think about it.
Yeah, it's great just because the thing is bulky. It's going to take several hits to take down. And he's got this really natural pairing with a contrary Pokemon that could actually get boosts while the opposing team is getting slowed down.
Yeah.
And they're kind of just a cool grass mode together.
Yeah, and now I just noticed that Heatmore gets White Smoke, which also kind of combos with that. Eldegoss, could be hit by something, and Heatmore will not lose his speed while the others will. And that's another kind of cool Pokemon. Obviously, this would be great with a clear body user, but I had no clue that this ability even existed. Beyond that, Eldegoss is a pretty good support Pokemon. I know it has Sleep Powder, Leech Seed, it's bulky. Could go Regenerator.
Yeah, I think Regenerator is a good option if you foresee a team where you're going to be switching in and out and taking advantage of some of the cool resistances that this team has. With Steel, Flying, Dark.
Yeah, definitely. And Lurantis is a Pokemon that is awesome. Contrary is an amazing ability in the Dynamax meta, obviously, just because you turn all of those debuffs into buffs, though awkwardly you turn all of the buffs that you give yourself into debuffs. So John's going to have to be careful about like max steel spiking while this thing is on the field, if he brings it, stuff like that. But I love these contrary Pokemon. I really wanted Lurantis myself to be able to like self-scary face it, or to just deal well with Intimidates. So I'm excited to see him with these grass types.
Can Raichu Eerie Impulse?
I'm not sure.
I think it might be able to, and that's a Lurantis that's at +4 special attack in 1 turn after Leaf Storming.
Yeah,
which is
that
just
is
kind of a cool thing.
frightening. Yeah, that's a good idea too.
Raichu we didn't talk about much, but that's because we're just kind of assuming that everybody knows how good it is.
Yeah.
It's one of the best tier 2s. It's one of the best tier whatevers in the game, and it not only helps its partner, but it's going to do something annoying, whether that's Nuzzle, whether that's faking you out. We were talking about how this line only doesn't get 2 elemental types.
Yeah.
Only fire and dragon.
The move pool. Well, that's, yeah, not entirely applicable in this meta, because it doesn't get access to all those moves. But it has an incredible move pool. Encore as another option.
Faint.
Yeah.
Electro Web. Surf.
Yeah. Nasty Plot, Grass Knot. Moving down, obviously we know that Ditto is useful. And as a tier 4, I think that it's a great pickup value-wise. It really helps stop opposing status easily without even needing to use a Dynamax slot sometimes. So if you play it right, it can be very good, but not one of my favorite Pokemon of the draft, though. I'd love to see it really do some more work. It's just so hard to bring, I feel.
I think he's got a team that makes it work because the Celesteela is going to be slowly setting up.
Yeah.
That's its goal. And in order to beat that, a lot of teams are going to try and set up quicker, right? And I feel like keeping a Ditto in the back to just take advantage of whatever the opponent just spent their time investing in is a really cool thing.
Yeah.
For this team.
Yeah. I completely agree.
A Ditto in the back with Celesteela, Raichu, Urshifu is just... it sounds good.
Yeah, Ditto. Scary. I'm always scared by it. Especially last team when I had Supreme set up. And this year I'm kind of doing the same thing. This season, sorry. Heatmore is a Pokemon we have not seen drafted before and was one of the few remaining fire types in the lower tiers. It's an interesting Pokemon. It has good special attack.
It has decent attack and Sucker Punch to kind of make up for that terrible speed.
It's got a neat move pool, just kind of frail and slow is the only thing about Heatmore. But White Smoke is an incredible ability, and even, he could be surprisingly strong if you give him an Assault Vest, and, just have what's his signature move? Fiery Lash, which is a great move.
Does that automatically defense drop?
Yeah.
That's
like
great.
An 80 power physical fire move that always lowers defense. And then Miltank. I've talked about this a lot with Carter. I think Miltank is really good. We were opposed to it dropping down to tier 4. I think the value of what it can do is incredible. Not only does it have self-healing, but it can heal teammates of status with Heal Bell. It can Thunder Wave. It can Icy Wind. It can Charm. It's quite fast. It's got good resistances with either Thick Fat or Sap Sipper. And it could also, just be a strong attacker if you go Scrappy and set this thing up somehow.
It's got a great move pool. Just a bunch of elemental moves and
good defenses and fast, which is kind of neat. It's not always that we see fast defensive Pokemon. And when you can be Thunder Waving things twice because you're fast enough and thick enough, that already is great to have on a team. Not to mention being able to absorb spores or sleep powders.
I don't know that it can do this, but it seems like a Pokemon that could Iron Defense Body Press.
Yeah, maybe. It definitely gets Body Press and Curse, but I'm not sure if it does get Iron Defense.
If it does, I could see this being a really annoying Pokemon with those 2 moves, Protect and Thunder Wave.
Yeah.
Really.
Or Milk Drink.
Or Milk Drink, yeah.
Should be a little mini Registeel. Ferrothorn
But
that can
fast.
really heal itself
But
and fast.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Skuntank is a Pokemon that I know John loves. Very cool move pool. Gets Sucker Punch, gets Flamethrower. Great type, obviously, especially paired with like Celesteela, just something that will help absorb its ground weakness. Maybe the grass types can help with that as well, because this will absorb the poison for them.
I think this Pokemon has a lot of unexplored moves, and I think it gets foul play. Stab foul play is wonderful in a world where you can kill a Dragapult. I'm hoping it can snarl. It gets Memento.
Yeah,
Which
it
is
does get
kind of
Memento.
cool.
Definitely could be good, Memento. I'm imagining Mementoing my own Lurantis. I don't know if you can affect a partner with Memento, but
I don't know either.
could be an interesting...
Getting it off the field and yeah.
Yeah, and setting up Lurantis after a speed boost or something.
This team has a lot going for it, and I'm still struggling with how to prepare. I had a great battle with John last season, and in the age of the Slowbro.
Yeah. Age of the Slowbro. Yeah, I think this is great, honestly. It does make me think, do we need both of these grass Pokemon? Surely there could be something from Tier 3 that would help.
Yeah, they play off each other, so I understand why they're there, but he might find that one of them's pulling more weight and that he's missing a type.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to see here. Do we have a strong... We have a fairy. We have steel. Doesn't have... Yeah, he's got a lot.
Doesn't need the ground type because of Raichu.
Yeah, and good rock resist with these two. It's strong.
Yeah, I almost would want this team to be trying to see if there is a better fire type to be had.
Centiskorch.
Yeah,
You want a white smoke Pokemon?
Yeah, something that can. And Centiskorch is cool because its max potential is there.
Yeah, and I mean, don't want to point to the logo here, but
Yeah, I could just see that because this is a steel-centric team. And I don't know, I feel like he needs something to handle opposing steels well.
yeah, I think he needs something to handle fire types. His fire resistances are frail in the special defense department, and he has this grass bomb down here, and thick fat will help a little bit, but I think Centiskorch is a bit bulkier than Heatmore.
Doesn't have the resist, though.
It has flash fire.
Oh.
So, in
Yeah.
case where you need the fire immunity, I would maybe look at Centiskorch and wonder if that's something you want. It does pair well with these guys. Okay, well, excellent work, Long Boys, and let's take a look at next.
Yeah.
A roommate of his, the Lordran Firekeepers, once again repping the Solrock mascot Mon, as well as Tapu Koko, Urshifu Single Strike for the Tier 1s, Aerodactyl, Bronzong, and Togetic for Tier 2s, Ribombee, Sceptile for Tier 3s, and Kangaskhan, Lantern, and Porygon, just normal Porygon, are joining Solrock in the Tier 4s. This team is pretty different from his last team. Last team we saw very bulky Grimmsnarl, Porygon 2, Hippowdon. Now we're seeing speed and offense.
This is a fun team. This team is not going to go to sleep. We can say that because between Tapu Koko and Ribombee's ability,
Yeah.
he is sleep immune in general.
Yeah.
I love that Porygon makes an appearance in any form on this team because Porygon 2 was this team's star, right?
Yeah.
Last season.
Oh, yeah.
And, Porygon doesn't have the same bulk, but it can do all the annoying things. It still can just carry enough damage through foul play to just be an annoying ally switcher, trick roomer, eerie impulsor.
Yeah, I love this. Is a Pokemon that I was considering bringing. Porygon original. Great ally switcher, and if you don't need to compete for Eviolite, then it's just such a solid Pokemon in what it can do.
This thing has some crazy fast modes as well. I mean, Trick Room's on lock with Bronzong and Porygon, but just leading Tapu Koko and Sceptile puts crazy pressure on an opponent.
Yes.
And then Ribombee can speed swap to a slower target and suddenly turn like Bronzong into a real fast Pokemon, which is cool. And I don't know if he wants to go that route, but if Ribombee is working, I could see finding an even bulkier recipient for that, because it can also heal that Pokemon after speed swapping to it through Pollen Puff.
Yeah. Ribombee is a very scary Pokemon. We saw it on the Mawiles last season. We got a little bit of what it can do, but it has a lot of supportive options, and it's just so fast. It's 121, right?
124.
124. It's ridiculously fast. And we see he has a really fast team with Koko, Aerodactyl, Ribombee, Sceptile.
But even Ribombee's putting that speed on Urshifu is pretty scary. Like, Urshifu's 97 speed lets it down, and if Urshifu's suddenly able to start Wicked Blowing, close combating things quickly, it gets scary fast.
Yeah, and he has some interesting options. He already has the Aerodactyl Tailwind to make that scary as well.
And also canceling any berries that someone might use to survive Urshifu.
Yeah, whatever that Colbur berry.
I think many teams facing the Firekeepers will run Chopal or Colbur or both.
I was just checking quickly on my phone there, but something I didn't realize that maybe people should think more about is that Ribombee's ability Shield Dust prevents it from getting flinched by Fake Out. Because it nullifies all secondary effects of damaging moves. It's not something that I thought about, but it's basically immune to Fake Out. It still gets hit.
So it's immune to Fake Out, and it could speed swap to a max Pokemon that is also immune to Fake Out.
Which...
Oh boy.
Keep that in mind, Firekeepers, that you have this just great lead setup with a lot of your Pokemon. And think about maybe looking for a slow special Pokemon to complement your Urshifu to speed swap.
Yeah, because Koko has offensive presence in the special department, but it's only because of the terrain.
Yeah.
That special attack isn't...
It's not great.
The best.
It's not great. And that is the only way... I don't think he gets play rough still. I think his only fairy offense is Dazzling Gleam, sadly. So Tapu Koko ends up being wishy-washy on how you want to run him, but he does, on the other hand, get like Brave Bird for Airstream, which is really cool on this team as well.
I think the Togetic is awesome for ensuring that something like Trick Room gets up. So I feel like maybe another waiver consideration would be getting a slow Pokemon that in some games you don't speed swap to, but you just operate as a Trick Room team. Because you've got the Trick Room set up, but there aren't many Pokemon to follow up on Trick Room turns.
Right. That's totally right. I'm trying to think. Now I'm thinking back to Emilio's team from last season, because I see Ribombee, Lantern, and Porygon. And those were all working together. But I'm trying to think of what other. He had Jellicent as a slow special threat.
A real slow special threat that we've just been kind of infatuated with is Drampa. I don't know if it's still available.
The problem is that the tier 3 slots here are kind of locked up a little bit. I love Ribombee on the team, and I think Sceptile is an amazing unburdened Pokemon for the value, like for tier 3. I think that whether he is breaking Swipe and just is support a la Thievul on Unburden, or he's just dishing out either special or physical attacks as a Maxmon. I don't think we see any Ice Shard user on this team for Sceptile, so maybe it could go if he finds that it starts to get underwhelming after a few matches. But Drampa, that is an option.
Let's talk about Kangaskhan.
Great Pokemon,
Just
right?
reliable
One of the best
Pokemon.
tier 4s.
Yeah.
Can't be intimidated. Can't be flinched. Has Scrappy. Great fake out. Set things up with Surf. Activate an Absorb Bulb. Who knows? Heal your Lantern with it. It can beat up, I think, but I don't know if he has any... No justified Pokemon.
I actually kind of want to look at Kangaskhan as another form of speed control with Max Strike. Just because since it can't be intimidated, it's doing
and it
good
hits
damage.
ghosts.
It hits ghosts.
Yeah.
And the double speed drop is maybe just the thing something like Urshifu needs to outspeed.
Yeah, as a Maxmon, you're totally right. And I gotta keep remembering that Scrappy prevents Intimidate as well, like you said, so... You can feel safe if you plan on using it as a Maxer. Just go Scrappy, and don't worry about inner focus there. Lantern is great. Lantern with Rising Voltage is scary.
It is scary.
Great. You know, we saw a little bit of that used last season, I think, when Emilio fought Tapu Koko. But I do remember there being a Rising Voltage, but he has the option to just set it up. And Lantern is already bulky, supportive, has great abilities, and then you can just be firing off 140 power special, like, electric attacks.
You're right, and here maybe is that Trick Room Sweeper that the team...
You're right, yeah, maybe we were sleeping on this thing's very mediocre special attack, but... You have a way of...
Rising Voltage is crazy.
Just,
crazy.
Not caring about that because of how strong it is. You know, that's overheat damage. That's just wild. Very cool. Great, ground resists here for his ground weaknesses. And
and the ability to either draw ground moves or to ally switch into them.
Yeah.
Is great.
Yeah, I almost think this is just going to be a tough team to pilot because what do you want to bring? And, it's tough to bring your Porygon and your Togetic on the same team, even though that would be a strong Trick Room mode in itself, but they both want Eviolite. Togetic Lantern pair well together for a lot of type coverage. Solrock, I know that this is a mascot Pokemon, but also a levitating Trick Room user that has a Will-O-Wisp.
You're right. He's got 3 Trick Room outs on this team.
Mm-hmm.
And, maybe if it's not a Trick Room team, it's just a team that's very comfortable going up against Trick Room.
Sure.
And resetting it.
Yeah. And having those bulky guys that can just turn it around for you. But yeah, very excited to see how Marcus adjusts to the new, more offensive-oriented team. And I don't have that many suggestions except that I maybe think that Aerodactyl could be swapped out for something else. And you might even start looking for some scary speed swap strats with that. Just because I think you have a lot of fast Pokemon here. You might not even need to concern yourself with Tailwind. Though I understand that Unnerve is a very attractive ability with your strong offense. Maybe I'm just not... I have an issue with frail Pokemon right now for some reason. I look at Kartana and I'm like, I look at Liepard,
Yeah, and it does compete for the Sash with Urshifu and Tapu Koko.
Yeah. And Rabombi.
There's a lot of Pokemon that won't focus Sash here.
Yeah, he's just got a fast, frail team for the most part, with some very good defensive Pokemon here, obviously, that are all relatively complementary to one another, as well as, their teammates. So you can kind of get a little bit of everything on the board. But I'm sure we could find something. But that's for the Firekeepers to just keep on their radar. Great draft, and let's move on to one more. Oh, ho, ho. If it isn't the Manitou Park Prankers. Our once champion tween star double rock slide here started with a sand team, I'll rattle down what he's got, but Excadrill and T-Tar as his tier 1s, Inteleon, Tornadus Therian as tier 2s, Gardevoir as a repeat draft, Gourgeist, Stoutland, and Toxicroak as tier 3s, and Emolga, Glaceon, and Rapidash as tier 4s. Now, I think that Eric and I both were thinking at first that this might have been a shaky start for Casey, because there was a point where he got sniped multiple times on Pokemon that he wanted, and he even seemed to feel a little bit lost. But he really pulled a great team together that, I would say has no bad Pokemon. Like, everything can do something, and everything is important, which is what you want to see.
Yeah, and I feel like any Pokemon can be linked to multiple partners on this team.
Yeah.
Like, I know that Gastrodon was maybe one of the biggest snipes. And, he's still got the immunity with Toxicroak. And then Gourgeist happens to maybe be the best partner for something like Tyranitar that a man could hope for.
Yeah, so like the Forest's Curse that we talked about earlier, Gourgeist gets a move called Trick or Treat, and it adds the Ghost type to an ally or an opponent. And so the cool thing about that is you can give your partners an immunity. You turn Tyranitar into a Ghost type and he's not getting hit by fighting moves. That's amazing. You can also use it offensively because your Tyranitar would love to eat some Ghost types. So if you just choose one of the fast Gourgeists and you change your opponent's Togekiss into, a Ghost Flying Fairy, you're going to feel way more comfortable launching out that strong Dark Attack in the case of a switch. It can make some plays way less safe for your opponent. I love that. I love that he grabbed Gardevoir again. We've seen a few redraft Pokemon where people just want to use their Pokemon again because they love it so much. And Gardevoir and Gallade are two of those Pokemon that were, which really makes you think, wow, those must be good Pokemon. And if you look at the movesets and everything, you see that, yes, they get Will-O-Wisp, they get Trick Room, they get Ally Switch, they both have cool types, all sorts of things. But I love Gardevoir as a Trick Room and offensive threat.
I love Stoutland as a pick on this team. That was something I had my eye on, and I ended up settling for Herdier because
That's right.
he picked Stoutland. But I think that this guy's bulky. It gets Intimidate, Baby Doll Eyes, Snarl, Thunderwave, Helping Hand, Roar. Its move pool on the support side is nuts, and After You in specific becomes really cool on this team through Sand Rush if he chooses to go that way. I think that the Sand core is scary, but the reason this team looked shaky at first is because you can prepare for it. If you know it's coming, and it's like he's found all the ways to subvert expectations that you could with the support guys that he picked.
Yeah, and, he can really take this in all sorts of directions. Tyranitar gets Unnerve, Excadrill with Mold Breaker. Those are abilities that don't need to be in sand that are really good. Stoutland, obviously, with Intimidate as well. And Stoutland can, on the other side, in sand, can be a strong physical attacker as opposed to Excadrill if you're worried about a very strong water presence or something. And then looking at, he's got a lot of offense, fast offense in his tier 2s with Inteleon, which is great. Just because you get access to that G-Max, which goes through Storm Drain and Water Absorb. Great. And then you have Tornadus, who is just a ridiculously strong Airstream user.
Yeah, and fast Tailwind. Right? The Regenerator is good. I think it can set up some weathers. I'm not sure which weathers.
Definitely gets Rain Dance.
Yeah, I don't know if it can set up Hail for that Glaceon, but I don't know. I think that the Inteleon in particular is a really good pick because he has a mode that's not the Sand Core if he wants. And he can just Toxicroak Inteleon is actually a pretty frightening lead. He can go the Focus Energy route if he wants to. He avoids redirection with Snipe Shot. He has Ice Shard and Aqua Jet.
Yeah, for the
weakness
Tornadus,
policy
for the
here.
Excadrill, for the
Yeah.
T-Tar. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the
For the
Toxicroak
Gorgeist.
has Vacuum Wave for weakness policy too.
Yeah.
So those T-Tar Excadrill, like the sweepers, become pretty frightening. And it's going to be hard to know what items he's bringing, honestly.
Yeah. Hasn't turned into a very Casey team of, like, brutally strong offense and then just a great support, like niche support.
Yeah.
We saw that from Salazzle, and now we're going to see it from Gorgeist.
We're going to see it
and
from
Stoutland and from Toxicroak, which seems very Casey.
I wanted Gorgeist for my Inteleon last season, and something that I can see these two doing together is a fast soak followed by a strong grass attack.
Yeah.
Like in your Gorgeist, because of its like mixed forms, like some of them are better for support, some of them are actually pretty awesome.
Yeah,
as
physically
attacking.
offensive. Yeah, it's a very interesting Pokemon, Gorgeist, because it has an amazing special move pool but poor special attack. But its physical move pool now, I think it gets Poltergeist,
Yep.
which helps it out a lot. Then we can touch on these guys a little bit. Emolga, a Pokemon I had last time that I traded it away, but I think it's really good. It also has Speed Swap. We're talking about Ribombee last team, but Emolga speed swapping with T-Tar would be scary, or with Glaceon would be scary, just as really big powerhouse Pokemon. It gets Encore, it gets Electro Web and Nuzzle. The one thing it does not get, which it used to, is Tailwind, but I think Emolga provides really, really good resistances for a lot of his Pokemon. Pairs well with Excadrill, and will just help out. Glaceon is a strong tier 4.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if he can get Hail up and just go to town with Blizzards, this thing has to be respected. And I think it gets Freeze Dry, too.
Yeah. Yeah, and all these evolutions get that range of support moves like Yawn, Fake Tears, Baby Doll Eyes. I think they all get those moves, and they're all useful at certain points. So though it has a very limited move pool, I think like Shadow Ball, Hyper Beam, Blizzard, it just will break through things with its special attack, and it has the support moves to fill in those other slots. And Rapidash, I mean, this is another Pokemon he drafted before, and you drafted.
Yeah, I liked it. This is a good tier 4 because that speed tier is insane. It's got a respectable physical move pool. I like fire types that can learn a ground move. I think that's really important. It's a fast charm, which I think is good. And this team needed another fire immunity. T-Tar and Inteleon are not enough when you have Gorgeist, Toxicroak, and Excadrill all hurting.
That's true.
So this was a smart move. And I think that if he's going to waiver something, it's going to be one of these final tier 4s, but they're all good. So I don't know. I don't know which one.
Yeah, I think if Casey's going to waiver, it's going to be for a very specific team. He's going to try to pick something out. But the problem is that tier 4 is so limited right now.
And he got good ones.
He got some of the best. Casey was someone who went and dove into tier 4 quite early because he was able to leave his tier 2 till the end. He was not... I mean, I think he was worried about it being sniped, but he prioritized the tier 4s, which I kind of regret not doing. I picked my higher tiers early.
I think Sand will do well this season.
Yeah, I think that, it's something we saw a little bit of last season with the Wingles and the Firekeepers. But this is clearly a more dedicated Sand team. He's got the T-Tar Excadrill threat. And it's just going to be scary on all fronts if he goes Sand or no Sand. Lots of fun options. Excited for some trick-or-treating, that's for sure.
Yeah, me too. I'm after you.